First speaker is in his fourth year running the LHSAA, previously served in the same capacity in Nevada for the Nevada Interscholastic Athletic Association. And of course, it's a big weekend for the LHSAA. They've got big weekends all year long with state championships they put on everywhere, but the biggest of which is this weekend in New Orleans, starting on Thursday with the LHSAA All-State Sugar Bowl State Championship games. 9 games over 3 days, which she'll tell you all about, and it's great to have him with us here this afternoon. Please give a very warm welcome to the Executive Director of the LHSAA, Mr. Eddie Bonine. Eddie?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Ken, and the Greater New Orleans Sports Foundation. I want to thank you again for this opportunity and what you do to showcase the athletes across our state. First of all, I would like to thank the All-State Sugar Bowl, who is our title sponsor. We can't do what we do with the LHSAA across our state and all the championships that we host without them, and specifically for this Prep Classic, the partnership we have with the New Orleans Saints as our presenting sponsor as well. They, as well as the All-State Sugar Bowl, assist us in this production we're going to do this weekend. Coaches, congratulations. We had the privilege to meet with all the football coaches that are head coaches and an athletic director representing from their schools this past Saturday to go through the processes that we use to get into the dome and practice, which those practices will start tomorrow at noon, and giving everybody an opportunity. Like I mentioned in the meeting, I don't really know if it's not so much a practice, it's more of a, what I would call a Mercedes Superdome acclimation period for those who've been in there before, those who have not. Walking in onto the Florida Superdome is an experience in itself. So they give the athletes and the coaches an opportunity to get acclimated, and then the games, of course, kick off on Thursday at noon. All 9 games will be televised live through CST. All of those games are going to be video streamed on the NFHS network, www.nhsnetwork.org. All those will be streamed worldwide. The response that we get across the world and as well as the nation has been incredible. The Southeast, and specifically in this case Louisiana, is a showcase for high school football and what we do with our Prep Classic. Many people watch us and watch what we do down here, including, not to be limited to, the facility in which we have the privilege to participate in, and that being the Mercedes Superdome. For the LHSAA, as Ken alluded to, the Prep Classic is the last of the fall sport championships. All the championships of this sport have been very successful. Attendance has been up. Participation numbers are growing. And I want to say publicly kudos to the individuals who participated in the state cross country run this year in Natchitoches, Louisiana. Let's just say the conditions were not so much favorable for those who run, but those who run will run in any condition, and that was very prevalent in cross country when it rained. And I talk about rain, and the course was very muddy, and the athletes plodded through it, and nobody quit. Everybody moved through and finished the races. But if you've ever seen those horse races where the only horse that doesn't have mud on them is the one that's in the lead, that was kind of what we had there. Everybody was covered in mud from head to toe, but kudos to the cross-country people as well. So as we finish up the prep sport in the fall, winter sports, as you know, have already taken off. Again, I want to mention the participation numbers are up well beyond the 95,000 single sport athletes that we have across our state, and it continues to grow. This past Saturday, even though it's not a sanctioned activity of ours, we do have an event which was the State Spirit Championships, and that number has grown leaps and bounds. In fact, we had over 300 more participants this year than we did a year ago, which puts us well up over 1,000 participants for that one-day event that was held at the Pontchartrain Center. This year was the second year of a 2-year reclassification period, so that means that we're going to go through the exercise of reclassifying and putting schools into their classifications, divisions, and districts. That process has been completed. I feel it was a success. We were able to streamline some of those processes and was able to get that part done. No matter how you do it, somebody's not going to be happy. But at the grand scheme of things, I believe we were able to get what we needed to get done for the classification and settling of all of those items. Before I finish up, I want to introduce our Director of Communications and Media Director. That's Ms. Tiara Gibson. Tiara, would you wave your hand, please? She's in her 2nd year with us and has the dubious duty of trying to keep me from not saying stuff I shouldn't say. Sometimes that doesn't always work, but she does the best she can with that. but she does a good job, and we're very grateful to have Tierra with us. We have a great staff, working hard staff. We do a lot we can do. It's not just a show up to tournaments, show up to playoffs, show up to championships and hand out awards. I have a hard-working staff that work diligently, as anybody does in this business. There's no Monday through Friday. It's you do what you have to do as long as it takes you to do it, including the weekends, and that's what I'm proud of, what the staff that we have put together. But with that note, I want to give coaches congratulations to you and the success you've had to get to the road to the Dome. Ken, thank you. Thank you so much, Foundation. Am I open for questions or am I good?
Raise your hand if you have a question or would like to raise your hand over here.
Eddie, do you, I know there was some questions last year with the financing as far as going to the Superdome. Is it, I don't know if this is the right term, but less expensive to play there now? Do you feel like you have that cost controlled, and as far as the future playing there in all those games?
Yes, sir. We have made the adjustments when necessary. The costs, as I told the coaches at their meeting, the guarantees that they were not able to get last year, they'll get this year. We found that we had many people that were coming into the Dome on passes that probably shouldn't have been in on passes. So we've had to go back logistically and look at a lot of different pieces of what we've done. I feel very positive we cleaned that up. I told the coaches at their meeting that they can anticipate their guarantees. And the ticket prices did increase, which has been the same for approximately over 12 years. We've increased those, but not to a point no one's going to, I mean, if ticket increase, the ticket increase. But I have no problems at all with what we're doing. And I think that the participation and the experience the young athletes have of participating in all the venues that we offer across the state, to include but not limited to just the Superdome, is something that we pride ourselves in. It's a safe venue, and it's something that they'll remember and hopefully remember the rest of their lives. So we want to continue to do that at this point.
Can you talk about any of the proposals that are going to be voted on this coming January? Anything specific to football or any other sport?
I think we had right at about 40 proposals, which was down by 20. Last year we had 60. And nothing, to my knowledge, nothing that was major that's going to jump out at anyone, other than there were some proposals that were submitted from a principal of the select side to establish a different playoff structure for specifically select schools to do so to get to the championship. By definition, we have regular season, we have playoffs, and we have championships. And the abilities per the Constitution for the select schools and those schools that vote only on those items, there were 4 or 5 that were submitted for sports in regards to postseason participation in the playoff structure. Other than that, it's just some eligibility items that have to sit on the table for a year to change the abilities for what I'm an executive director can or can't do. In this case, probably loosening up a little bit more of what I can do when it comes to eligibility and when it comes to rulings on athletes and or on coaches if there's been a violation on a sanction, which I think will have some generation of vote. But for that to be for something with eligibility that has to be immediately effective, it has to be voted on. 2/3 of the population within the room, and the principals have to vote to take it off the table. If not, it will sit for a year. Other than that, there's nothing that really was earth-shattering that's going to make it a large, significant, wow kind of thing at this point of those proposals.
Anyone else?
I know we're at football playoff time, the championship, but what about wrestling? What's the future of that, where that championship is going to be held? Is it going to be opened up for bidding again for the rest of other areas of the state?
This will be the contract that was negotiated initially with Shreveport. You're talking about wrestling, right? Shreveport?
Right.
Yeah. So this will be the last year of that contract that was going to be in Shreveport. What we have in writing now is that those coaches have a subcommittee, or in this case, a wrestling advisory committee, in which they meet and discuss that with the director that's been assigned to wrestling. In this case, is Mr. Adam McDowell, and they have the abilities to give input on where they feel as though that site should be. So the process will come up for a bid for that. However, in our policy, it doesn't necessarily have to go to bid. It can be something that can be negotiated, and the executive director can take a recommendation to the executive committee on where that wrestling site would be. That's always been a conversation since I've been here. I get that. and we're going to try to do what we can to make sure that it's the best venue we can find for wrestlers and use some common sense as well.
Regarding this weekend, last year when you were here, you mentioned that you like the idea of going to 3 games a day, 3 days, bringing everything back on the same weekend, but you did say that game times were going to rotate, but yet everything is the same this year. Is that something that's going to be changed going forward?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And what I chose to do is when we reclassify, then we set with those for 2 years for visibility. So this is the second year with this particular rotation. It may be longer, but with me here, this is the second year we've had that rotation we had. And I'm open to suggestions because no matter how I shuffle that deck, nobody wants to play at noon on Thursday, nobody wants to play at noon on Friday. And that's kind of where we are. So if anybody has any suggestions on what that rotation should look like, should it be more than every 2 years, then somebody can please submit that to my email address, ebonine@lhsaa.org. And then we can take a look at that as we process, as we begin the new reclassification starting in 1920.
Well, to that regard, a lot of your other championships are dictated by, the game times are dictated by proximity to the location, meaning, you know, the case here, maybe New Orleans area teams would get the spots where they have an opportunity to draw more or something like that. Is that something you would look at?
It is part of the criteria, and we also found, to be honest with you, there's a concern with the cost of the schools coming here to practice, which is an issue. So some have opted not to come down, even trying to massage the practice times, having the furthest come the latest in the day. It's just not feasible cost-wise on whether they come down to practice today, or excuse me, practice tomorrow if they're going to play on Thursday. Now it's a trip back. It ends up a cost incurred, and we're only at this point by policy we pay one way for those costs. So I understand the cost piece of that. All that part's going to be reconsidered when we take a look at how we're going to move forward with the Prep Classic. Good question. Thank you. Tiara, did I get everything?
You did great.
All right. Thank you.